teaching, research, and training of national and international level. Being an expert in number of committees of the University Grant Commission (UGC), she has gained knowledge about administration and working on research proposals. Professor Mandeep has published more than 65 research papers and guided 10 PhD and 11 PhD students are presenting their research work under her supervision. She has organized 5 research methodology workshops and 2 refresher programs for faculty. She has participated in more than 70 conferences, seminars, workshops, research courses in different capacities like chairperson, co-chairperson, resource person, panelist, etc. Professor Mandeep has successfully completed 2 research projects funded by University Grant Commission (UGC). So again, I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Ji, over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Uh, I've come to know that there are participants from from commerce, management, and hospitality sector, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, before starting the topic, I just would like to have a brief, profile of the participants in the sense that how many of them are already completed their doctorate? Any
Sorry.
idea, sir? How many of them are have already completed their doctorate degree,
Most
PhD
of them,
degree?
I think, is most of
Most
them
of
are
them.
doctorate, ma'am.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Because since I've told you that, sir might have told you that basically the topic which shall be interacting with you is on the research methodology. So that was a reason I was asking that how many of you have done already. So those who have done PhD, they may be having a different perspective from the research, and those who have not done, they might be having the different perspective for research. So that was the only reason. Okay, let's start with the topic. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Not now, ma'am. अभी नहीं देख पा रहे हैं.
Not now. Okay, let me check. Let me do it once again. Let me try
जी
once
जी
again.
जी.
Just a minute.
जी, there is a information for you all. जो आपको आर्टिकल सबमिट कराने थे, जिसके लिए आपको फोस्टैक लॉगिन पे सबमिट करना था, उसके लिए आपको एक ईमेल आईडी शेयर किया जाएगा, जिसपे आप अपने जो आर्टिकल है वो मेल के माध्यम से सेंड करेंगे। आईडी, जो ईमेल आईडी रहेगी वो आपको व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में शेयर कर दी जाएगी। एंड वन मोर थिंग, फ्रॉम डे आफ्टर टुमारो वी विल स्टार्ट आवर प्रेजेंटेशन सेशन इन द पोस्ट लंच सेशन। सो परसों से आपकी जो प्रेजेंटेशन है वो स्टार्ट रहेंगी। आर्टिकल जो है आज आप जो लाइक टुडे इज द लास्ट डेट, सो आप मेल के माध्यम से अपनी जो आर्टिकल है वो सेंड करेंगे। उसमें आप अपना नाम पता जरूर लिखेंगे, आप कौन से कॉलेज से और आपका नाम क्या है। जी
सर, टुडे इज द लास्ट डे।
जी,
आज सर कब तक जमा करना
आप
है?
रात तक कर दीजिए मैम, नो इश्यू।
कल तक कर सकते हैं?
कल कर दीजिए मैम।
हेलो, ओके सर, थैंक यू सर। सर हेलो।
जी जी
हेलो
जी सुचित्रा जी।
सर, जो डिजर्टेशन ग्रुप बना था सर, उससे मतलब कुछ उसके बारे में फिर जानकारी नहीं मिली, कौन कौन जुड़ा है।
बताते
तो
हैं
हम
मैम,
अपना बना के अपना इंडिविजुअली प्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं?
मैं बताऊंगा मैम उसके बाद। यस मनदीप मैम, सुन पा रहे हैं?
हेलो
जी 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 प्रोफेसर
हेलो
मनदीप जी।
सर, पवन सर,
जी
आवाज आ रही?
जी बोलिए।
सर, वो जो डिजर्टेशन देना था प्रेजेंटेशन,
जी
तो सर ग्रुप तो बना नहीं, अभी कुछ ऐसा मतलब मिला नहीं इंफॉर्मेशन।
उसके बारे में
तो
मैम
हम
आपको
अपना
लंच ब्रेक के टाइम पे
इंडिविजुअल
मैं इन्फॉर्म करूंगा।
हाँ सर,
आपको लंच ब्रेक टाइम के पास मैं उसको बता दूंगा मैम, उसका जो ग्रुप वाली बात है।
ओके
जी
ओके सर, ओके, थैंक यू।
यस मैम। नाउ वी कैन सी योर स्क्रीन मैम। प्लीज अनम्यूट योर सेल्फ मैम।
Hello.
जी
Should I start, sir?
यस यस मैम प्लीज।
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. So, welcome participants. Today we shall talk about research to some extent and specifically on the hypothesis testing. Why I asked this question in the beginning, that how many of you are doctorate, because I wish to know that how many of you have already worked on this part, and because everybody might be having the different kind of topic, but the basic part of research which is required for everyone, because what I consider is that PhD only is a base, and after that the research process starts, and for guiding our students also we need all these things. So let me quickly go to the base of this. Research is basically the search for knowledge. When we talk about research, so it means we are talking about searching again and again. So it is a systematized effort to gain the new knowledge, and it is a search for knowledge through objective and systematic method of finding solution to a problem. We call it a scientific method also. Like in science, we adopt the different procedures step by step. Same is here in research. It is basically the components are that first of all we define and redefine the problems, and then formulate the hypothesis, and then we collect in order to prove those hypotheses. We collect and organize and evaluate the data which we are taking into consideration in our research problem. Then on the basis of that, we make certain deductions and then we reach to the conclusions. And after reaching the conclusion, it is not enough unless we interpret those conclusions to determine whether they fit the formulated hypothesis or not. So basically, in the whole process, whatever the research hypothesis we have defined or formulated in the beginning, we try to prove that hypothesis, whether it is correct or it is not correct. And what is the basic objective of research? Research can be of many types, like if you basically go for the types of research, it is exploratory, it is descriptive, it is causal. So that is why it is called that the basic objective of the research may be to gain familiarity with the phenomenon or achieve new insights. That is the exploratory research. Exploratory research is basically where not much work has already been done. We're trying to explore the new things, which is not done quantitatively, but it is done qualitatively. Then secondly, it can be to portray accurately the characteristics of the particular individual or situation or a group, which is known as descriptive research, where we make use of the questionnaires. Like suppose we have to collect the primary data from the individuals or the organizations, we ask them certain questions in the form of a structured questionnaire, and then we try to analyze it. That is basically a part of descriptive research. Then comes another objective, which could be in some cases, that is to determine the frequency with which something occurs or with which some is associated with the another, diagnostic research, that how much one is related to another. And lastly, and very importantly, is to test the hypothesis of a causal relationship between the variables. For example, people here are from the economics as well as commerce, all have done, have studied economics. A very simple law of demand, which we when we were students or our elders were the students, they are going through this law of demand, that there is an inverse relationship between demand and price if everything is normal condition. So that is a causal relationship, that if one is rising, another is falling, or another is rising, because one is the cause of another. Okay, so in hypothesis testing research, we go for the causal research. Basically, hello. Basically, these are the 3-4 kinds of research designs, which is based upon the quality as well as the problem of the research where one researcher is going through. Now, in this particular lecture, I shall be talking about the hypothesis testing. Now, before that, let me quickly go to the research process. Everyone who starts with the research, this is just for taking towards that journey. I'm just giving you one idea of that. That very first step in any research process is maybe any discipline. We always define the search problem first. That what is the problem, what is the area in which I'm going to conduct research, and what will be my specific problem. And then on the basis of that topic, we go for the review of literature, because we have chosen the topic as a wide topic, not the specific topic. So on the basis of that wide area, we go for the review of literature, that what kind of studies have already been conducted in this area, and what were their concepts, what were their theories, and what were their findings. And on the basis of that, we go for the research gap, and then we formulate the hypothesis of our study, that what will the hypothesis in case of my study. And then according to those hypotheses, we have to, like as I said in the beginning also, that basically the whole process is that whatever hypothesis I've formulated or I've established, I try to prove them whether they are correct or they are incorrect. So in order to go for that journey, we have to follow certain steps. So after formulating the hypothesis, we go for the research design. Like in the previous slide, when I talked about the objectives, Basically, they were the different research designs, that what kind of design I'm following, whether exploratory or descriptive or causal or diagnostic. It does not include only the research design, it includes even the sample design. Whether your study is based upon the primary data, I hope you all know the difference between the primary and the secondary data. Primary data is when we collect the first-hand information from the individuals or the respondents, or whatever is your sample. But in case of secondary data, we are using the data which has already been collected or defined by the previous researchers, and I'm using that data. For example, I have to study the progress of the company in terms of exports or imports or something. I'm taking 10 companies, then I will be taking the data from their records, that what was the 10-year data relating to export or import or the profitability or whatever variable I'm having. So this is a basic difference. Now, when I have decided already that whether I'm going for primary data research or I'm going for secondary data research, then comes your sample size, which will again be different for both kind of data collection. And in case of the sample data design, sample designing is basically, since I cannot take the whole population into consideration, I have to choose some sample. Of course, that is also based upon the different criterias. There are different methods of choosing the sample. Some of them are based upon the random sampling. We also call it the probability sampling, and some of them are based upon the non-random or non-probability sampling. And in probability sampling, we have the chance of choosing each and every respondent or unit. They are having equal chance of being chosen. But in case of non-probability, we use our convenience, we use our judgment, we use our purpose, or it can be snowball sampling. So then comes what should be size of the sample. It again depends upon your kind of research. There is a formula also statistically which helps us to find out that in case of my particular study, what should be the sample size. There are certain other criteria also to choose a sample size. That is basically which particular technique are you going to use while analyzing the data. So there are certain limitations for that, that if you're using this particular technique, then the data should be this number. So again, this is your specific study based, that what should be the size of the sample. And same is the case when you talk about secondary data study, that what should be the number of years, what should be the number of variables, what should be the number of companies, what should be the number of banks, whatever your respondent is. Now, after designing these all things, we have chosen the sample, we have decided the size of sample, we have decided the way of choosing the sample, then we shall be collecting data from them, whether primary or secondary. So once the data has been collected, this collected data is of no use unless I analyze it, right? So then comes the very, very important part of the study, that is analyzing the data. Now here I have written testing the hypothesis. Does not mean only testing the hypothesis. You can analyze the data by using any, there are n number of ways of analyzing the data. Again, depending upon what was the objective of your research, which comes after formulating the hypothesis. Okay, it can be your descriptive stats, it can be your different kinds of marketing research studies, it can be on the basis of correlation, it can be the regression, multiple tests, there's so many things. Okay, and it can be testing of the hypothesis. Why I have particularly written here the testing of hypothesis, because this lecture of with you will be taking into consideration only this part, because everything cannot be covered in this 3 hours of time. So after testing the hypothesis, I will reach to certain conclusions. Whatever hypothesis I formulated, whether this has been accepted or this has been rejected, then I will interpret it according to that, and then I will present and report my finding. So this is the whole research process. So now, in order to, understanding analyzing the data through testing the hypothesis, we need to go for certain terms. So I shall not be covering the various, parts or steps of the research process. I'm directly going to the analyzing the data, though in short, I've told you how the steps are, being covered in the study. And since most of you are doctors, you all have done these kinds of works. So now I'll tell you what is basically testing of hypothesis. For that, I need to know certain terms. One is statistical inference. Inference is a conclusion or decision. It's a process used to infer properties of the system by using statistics computed from a sample that represents a population of outcomes from the system. Now, as I told earlier also in my discussion, that I cannot go for each and every unit of the study of the population. I need to take a sample. Okay, when I'm taking a sample and on the basis of the sample, I'm going to present certain results, I should be very clearly knowing this, whether this sample is a true representative of the population or not. So once it is a true representative of the population, and whatever the results I'm getting from the sample will be applicable to the population. So that is basically the statistical inference. It includes the procedures to obtain specific values from the population parameters. It can be estimation also, that is to answer specific questions, and it can be hypothesis testing also. Now, I'm using the term population and sample again and again, just for the clarity, what is the basic difference between these two. Population is the entire collection of all the observations which are of interest and could be required to be studied by the researcher. For example, in case of primary data, let's say I have to conduct a study on the credit card holders of, different banks in Haryana, let's say. Okay, then my population will be in that case all the credit card holders who are residents of Haryana. Now, I cannot go to each and every individual and collect information from them. Then I choose that I should take a sample. So sample is a small subset or representative portion of the population which is selected for the study. For example, I have decided to take 500 respondents who are the credit card holders of a particular bank. Then it will be a subset of the population that is known as a sample. For example, in case of secondary data, now I have to talk about, let's say, all the commercial banks, right? Now, in case of all the commercial banks, I have to take the data maybe regarding their, assets, or regarding their profitability, or regarding their deposits, regarding their advances or loans. So for that case, my population will be all the commercial banks. And maybe that limitation of my study is that I don't have much time, I don't have much resources, I cannot go and collect data for 20 years, let's say is the time for each and every bank. I have chosen a sample of, let's say, 10 banks on the basis of certain logic or certain solid criteria. Then sample will be those 10 banks. I hope the terms are clear. Now, what is basically hypothesis, the term which we use again and again? It is basically a supposition. It's basically an assumption. It is basically a proposition that a researcher wants to verify. A researcher assumes that, let's say, the profitability of the banks will be equal in all the cases of all the banks. Let's say that is your null hypothesis. So this you want to prove later on. So in order to prove that, we need to go for the testing of that hypothesis. The testing of the hypothesis is basically following all the steps like a judge follows when he or she wishes to prove that the person is guilty or not. what assumption they follow before proving the charge. The assumption is being followed that one is innocent till the evidence proves it otherwise. So kabhi bhi, whenever you might have seen in the different movies or different plays that the person who comes to the court, they never call them that he's a culprit or she's a culprit. They simply try to prove the charges against that person, and once the charges are proved, only then that person will be called culprit or not. Same is the case of statistician or analyst. He also believes or she also believes that the assumption is true unless and until the evidence from the sample information proves otherwise. Whatever assumption I've taken, I'll presume like it is an innocent, and I'll presume that it is what I believe, unless the information taken from the different sources prove it otherwise. So same in case of the judge and in case of the analyst, they follow the same method of proving. One is they proceed with the assumption that the particular hypothesis is true. Then they try to collect the evidence. And in case of statistician, they try to collect the data. And then they try to analyze the data. Now, after analyzing the data, if the results or evidence show the contradiction, okay, whatever was the assumption taken by that researcher or by that judge that is being contradicted, it means it can be concluded that the hypothesis is not true. So the person is guilty. Okay. Otherwise, the original hypothesis will stand. And how this whole process takes place, I'll tell you within a minute. Going to the next slide. Before the procedure, let me clarify certain concepts for those who don't know about this. I presume that you might be knowing this, but it is my duty to tell you before going for the process. Hypothesis, I've already told you, is a supposition or a guess which is made by the searcher. Of course, this guess is based on the different review of literature or the different studies which have already been conducted by the previous researchers. So two kinds of hypotheses we take into consideration. One is null hypothesis, another is alternative or alternate, whatever you can call it. In null hypothesis, assumption is of no change, no effect, no difference. I presume, like the judge presumed, the person is not guilty. Okay. So I, as a researcher, also have to presume that unless it is proved otherwise, I presume that there is no change. For example, I give you one more example in this case, that I'm going to compare the performance of the two banks for the different years. No, I have not collected data for any bank. I have not taken any sample. Before that, when I will be formulating the hypothesis, I will presume that both the banks have same kind of performance. So that is known as null hypothesis. Meaning thereby, in simple words, that there is no difference in the performance of two sample banks which have been taken by the searcher. So that is basically null hypothesis. Now, I, as a researcher, will have to check the null hypothesis later on. But as I said earlier, if this hypothesis is proved wrong, like the charges against the person who is in front of the judge are proved that that person has committed some mistake, it means your null hypothesis that the person is innocent will be proved wrong. So the person will be proved guilty. Okay, same is the case here. If your null hypothesis later on is proved to be wrong, then you have to accept something, and that something is nothing but the opposite of your null hypothesis, that is alternate hypothesis, which is an assumption which must hold if null hypothesis is proved to be untrue. Such a hypothesis assumes effects of the experiment, assumes change or difference. So null hypothesis says there is no difference, but alternate hypothesis says, yeah, there is a difference. And in order to prove all these things, we use certain test, and that test is known as test statistics. It is nothing but any statistics which is calculated to find out your results. Then another term we come across in social sciences while going from the hypothesis test is very, very important term known as level of significance. In certain, reviews or literature, you will find there's another name of this that is known as, alpha in Greek letter. Level of significance is nothing but it represents the probability of rejecting a true hypothesis, or it represents the probability that the difference between the actual observation and the assumed one cannot be attributed to randomness. It is that level where the differences are significantly different from where it could be attributed to randomness. Now, in simple words, I'll tell you, for example, whatever null hypothesis you started in the beginning, okay, assumed in the beginning, it was true, okay, but when I collected the sample, when I went for the steps of the testing of the hypothesis, at the end it was proved as rejected. Though it was true, it was proved as rejected. It means I have committed some mistake, and that is known as level of significance or error, which is always given to a researcher because we cannot be 100% sure that whatever sample I have taken will be actual representative of the population. Though these things are possible in the true sciences, pure sciences जिसको हम बोलते हैं, chemistry, physics, etc. They take everything with the proper measurement. But here we are measuring the human beings. We are measuring the data which has been collected by the other persons, if it is secondary data. So wherever the human touch is involved, we cannot be 100% sure. For example, I asked you a question today relating to your preferences for a particular product, let's say. And after a month again, I'm asking you the same question. Maybe all of you are not giving the same kind of answer because the situation could be different at that way. So that is why in social sciences, there is always a chance of error, which is allowable error. It is also known as another name of this is type 1 error, which is nothing but the probability of rejecting a hypothesis. When I say hypothesis here, I will say null hypothesis because we always try to test null hypothesis. So probability of rejecting a null hypothesis when it was true. So this is a probability error which is allowable. It can be 5%, it can be 1%, it can be 10%, again depending upon the kind of research you are following. Now, coming to the basic steps of testing the hypothesis, which you have already formulated. So, very first step was to formulate the null hypothesis as well as alternative. You cannot go only for the null hypothesis because if later on it is proved to be wrong or untrue, what will you formulate? Well, what will you conclude? So that is why we need to have two kinds of hypotheses. One is null, denoted as H0, and another is alternate, which is denoted as HA. Then as a researcher, you need to specify the level of significance, which I told you in the previous slide. That is the error, also denoted as alpha, that you need to specify what percent of error is allowable in your research. You can go to the previous research literature, review of literature se pata chal jayega ki kitna allowed hai, or you can talk to your experts in this area. So generally we can take 5% also, we take 1% also. Then every research problem and every kind of data collection cannot use the same test. So depending upon your data, depending upon your research problem, you will select a suitable test statistics. How to choose this suitable test statistics, I'll tell you in the later part. After that, choosing the test statistics, I will calculate certain values. Okay, on the basis of the sample, I'll calculate certain values. That is the calculation of test statistic. And then on the basis of those values which have been calculated, I will take a decision whether the hypothesis formulated by me has been accepted or has been rejected. Any doubt till now?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay. When I said in the different steps that I will be choosing a suitable test statistic, okay. In order to go for the suitable test statistic, I need to know the background of those tests. Now, there are basically two kinds of tests. One is parametric, another is non-parametric. A parametric test is the test which requires and specifies certain conditions. It is based upon certain assumptions, you can say, about the parameter of the population. Now, what do you mean by parameter of the population? कि जितनी भी आपकी population है, अगर suppose the whole population का मैं mean निकालती हूँ, mean is also parameter, median is also parameter, standard deviation is also parameter. So we have to, like, these tests are based on certain assumptions on the parameters of the population from where the sample is being drawn. Like I gave you example in the beginning. Suppose I'm taking the credit card holders of Haryana, then that is the population. And out of that, if I'm choosing 500 respondents, that will be the sample. Then another assumption is that such tests make assumptions regarding the population for the normal probability distribution. I believe you people know about normal probability distribution. Yes or no? Have you heard normal probability distribution? A bell-shaped curve? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
A bell-shaped. Yeah. So parametric tests assume that the population is normally distributed. This is very, very important assumption in this. Then these tests are more powerful and strong in their application and are usually applicable when the data is of interval scale or ratio scale. Now, let me introduce one more thing here. Like when we collect the data has a various types. One is known as nominal data. I don't know how many of you know, but I'll tell you in short. Nominal data is the data which we collect just for the purpose of identification. जैसे प्लेयर्स ने के चेस्ट नंबर लगे होते हैं, है ना, टी शर्ट के पीछे, टी शर्ट के आगे कहीं लगे होते हैं, तो इसे प्लेयर नंबर 12 just to identify that as the player number 12. Okay, does not mean player number 12 is better than the player number 13 or player number 11. It is just for the identification purpose. So that kind of data is known as nominal data. For example, gender. One is female, one is male. So that is only identification. Then comes your ordinal data. Now, ordinal data tells you about the identification plus rating also. Like I say, the person has been ranked first in the, in any competition. The person has been ranked second in the competition or third in the competition. So it definitely tell you the who has been ranked first is better than who has been ranked second and who has been ranked third. Okay. You know that there is a ranking, but you cannot tell what is the difference between them. Maybe किसी competition में, किसी reality show में, the person has been judged as first. Second is a runner-up. आपको ये नहीं पता कि runner-up और first में difference कितना है quantitatively. ठीक है, ranking पता है, लेकिन कितना difference है ये नहीं पता. Similarly, second runner-up और फर्स्ट रनर अप में कितना फर्क है क्वांटिटेटिवली ये आपको नहीं पता, लेकिन आपको रैंकिंग पता है. सो दैट इज बेसिकली ऑर्डिनल डाटा. सो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट नॉमिनल एंड ऑर्डिनल डाटा, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट बेसिकली क्वालिटेटिव एस्पेक्ट्स. थर्ड कम्स द स्केल डाटा. स्केल डाटा में आगे इंटरवल और रेशियो स्केल आ जाता है. दैट इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम फॉर हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग. यू मस्ट नो व्हाट इज द स्केल डाटा. स्केल डाटा इज वेयर you know the identification, you know the ranking, and you know the actual values also. For example, allocation of marks. I know the person who is standing first in the class has got 90 marks. The person who is standing second in the class has got 87 marks. And the difference between them is 3 marks. And similarly, next person is getting 85 marks. I know quantitatively the difference is how much. So whenever we are having the quantitative touch, that the data is based upon the interval or ratio scale, only then I can apply the parametric test. Now come to just go back to the procedure where I said choosing the appropriate test statistics. That is chosen by the searcher himself or herself. Of course, based upon what kind of data has been collected by you, what kind of information is available with you, which you are going to analyze in the near future. I hope your assumptions are clear. Now what are the non-parametric tests? They are also known as distribution-free tests or distribution-free methods. Why so? Because the assumption of normal probability distribution do not apply here. That doesn't apply. Here data may or may not be normally distributed. हम check ही नहीं करते. अगर suppose हमने check किया कि data जो मेरा है वो normally distributed नहीं है, तो इसका मतलब मैं वहाँ पे parametric test नहीं लगाऊंगी, वहाँ पे मैं non-parametric test लगाऊंगी. So these are the tests which do not specify the conditions and assumptions about the parameters of the population. These are widely used for nominal or ordinal data where the parametric tests are not available at all. This is the thing which I told you before going for the parametric test, that the data is of 3 broad kinds. So parametric tests are applicable on the scale data. So what about the data which you have collected in certain studies? You need data which is nominal or ordinal. So what will be applicable there? Non-parametric tests will be applicable there. I hope you are clear about the difference. I need response.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And in
Yes, ma'am.
this topic, which I am basically going to start right now, this was all the background, right? I shall be only talking about the parametric tests because the time may not permit me to go for the non-parametric tests. So let's go for parametric tests. वो कौन-कौन से होते हैं और कौन सा कहाँ पे लगेगा? One sample t-test. Is the screen clearly visible?
Yes, ma'am.
जी.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. One sample t-test. Theoretically, अगर आपने कहीं stats की books, क्योंकि economics वालों ने भी पढ़ा होता है हमेशा stats in your PG classes basically, you might have gone through hypothesis testing there also, and you might have seen कि वहाँ पे लिखा होता है Z test and T test. Okay. But when we use make use of the softwares, because I'm going to tell you things from the software point of view, because nowadays nobody calculates the values manually, but they just apply the softwares and they get the results. There, we only use the term t-test. We don't use the term z-test. So they are basically same from that angle. Now, what is the one sample t-test? For example, let me take a very simple example from the, we are the students of graduation. Let me go to the root level. For example, in a particular college, I wish to know that what is the average weight of the students. Okay, this is my research area. कुछ नहीं है, simply कि average weight of the students of this college कितना होएगा. ठीक है? Let's say there are 2000 or plus students in the college. Okay. मुझे कुछ आइडिया नहीं, मेरी रिसर्च प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मैंने वेट कैलकुलेट करना है. एक तो तरीका ये है कि आई measure the weight of each and every student of the college 2000 plus and I'll get the result, but it is not possible for me. So what I decide is that I'll take a sample of, let's say, 300 or 400, again depending upon your time and resources and the area. तो मुझे लगता है कि मैं अगर 400 लोगों का या 300 लोगों का वेट मेजर कर लूंगी तो उससे मुझे पता चल जाएगा कि पूरे कॉलेज के स्टूडेंट्स का वेट क्या है. बट द कंडीशन इज it should be too representative. Now, what is the population in this case? All the college students. That will be population. And what will be the sample? 300 students, which will be chosen by me by any of the method which I will be deciding for the choosing the sample. Okay. Now here I'm taking only one kind of sample. Every student is same for me, whether it's female, whether male, whether is from PG class, whether is from the graduation class, whether is from first year, whether is from second year, anything. मेरे लिए वो student क्या है? एक unit है जिसका मैंने weight measure करना है. ठीक है? So it is basically a case of one sample test. क्योंकि मुझे sample एक ही चाहिए. I hope it is clear now. Now the one sample t-test is used to determine whether a sample comes from the population with the specific mean. अब इसका क्या मतलब है with the specific mean? कि मुझे पहले से एक hypothesis set करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है? मुझे लगता है कि average weight of the students of the college I'm taking from the sample from is 50 kg. ठीक है? तो मेरा null hypothesis क्या हुआ? That average weight of the students of the class, students of the college is 50 kg. This is my H naught, that is null hypothesis. You can use your copies and pens also to write it in order to understand it more quickly. Okay, ये मैंने assumption ले ली. ठीक है? अब मेरी alternate hypothesis में मुझे set करना पड़ेगा because in case after the testing procedure my null hypothesis proves to be wrong, I have to say something in the interpretation. So what will be your alternate hypothesis? That is HA, that is mean. Mean को हम कैसे लिखते हैं इसमें? Mu. Mu is an Greek letter which represents the population mean. So I will say that mean is not equal to 50. So you have set two hypotheses. The very first step, that is mu is equal to 50 and mu is not equal to 50. Okay. Then what was the second step? इस फीचर में मैंने बताया था to calculate the level of significance. Let's say I've decided कि मेरा error कितनी मैं allow कर सकती हूँ? मैं 5% error allow कर सकती हूँ. ठीक है? Now third step is to choose the appropriate test statistic. मुझे पता है मेरे पास एक ही सैंपल है. ठीक है? और उसके ऊपर मैं one sample t test लगा सकती हूँ. ठीक है? Provided I meet all the assumptions. Okay. Then I will prove whether the, after collecting the data, I will come to know whether the assumption taken by me is right or not. Now let's go back to this slide. The one sample t-test is used to determine whether a sample comes from population with a specified mean. The population mean is not always known. जरूरी नहीं है मुझे पता हो, but is sometimes hypothesized, which I have done now. मैंने hypothesize किया कि mean is equal to 50 kg. Okay. For example, here another example has been given that the researcher wants to know a new teaching method for students struggling to learn English grammar can improve their grammar skills to the national average. The sample would be the students who received the new teaching method and the population mean would be the national average score. आप इस एग्जाम्पल को चाहे पढ़ो, जो एग्जाम्पल मैंने सिंपल दी है उसी को दिमाग में रखो. अब मैंने बोला कि मैंने हाइपोथेसिस सेट कर लिया, मैंने लेवल ऑफ सिग्निफिकेंस सेट कर लिया, मैंने टेस्ट स्टैटिस्टिक्स सेट कर लिया, पर मुझे उसकी असम्पशन फॉलो करनी है. वेरी फर्स्ट असम्पशन इज द डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल शुड बी मेजर्ड इन इंटरवल और रेशियो स्केल. एज आई सेड इन द बिगनिंग कि पैरामीट्रिक टेस्ट वहीं लगेंगे जहां पे क्वांटिटेटिव डाटा आपके पास. ठीक है. देन असम्पशन 2, द डाटा आर इंडिपेंडेंट और नॉट रिलेटेड, विच मीन्स कि एक ऑब्जर्वेशन का दूसरी ऑब्जर्वेशन के साथ कोई लेना देना नहीं है, कोई रिलेशनशिप नहीं है. अगर आपने 300 स्टूडेंट्स का डाटा कलेक्ट किया तो ये नहीं है जो फर्स्ट है उसका सेकंड के साथ कोई रिलेशन है. उसका वेट इंडिविजुअल है, उसका वेट इंडिपेंडेंट है ना, दूसरे का इंडिपेंडेंट है. सो द ऑब्जर्वेशन शुड बी इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ वन अनदर. थर्ड वन इज देयर शुड बी नो सिग्निफिकेंट आउटलायर्स. There should be no significant outliers. Now, what is outlier? I hope you know. Outlier is something which is not a part of, average data. जैसे कि मैंने वेट की बात की, मुझे लग रहा है कि एवरेज वेट 50 है, किसी का 48 होएगा, किसी का 45 होएगा, किसी का 55 होएगा, किसी का 60 हो गया. सपोज एक स्टूडेंट है जिसका वेट अंडर वेट है, वो बच्चा है ना, उसका वेट 35 है, उसका वेट 30 है, या कोई ओवरवेट बच्चा है जिसका वेट 85 है या 90 है. अगर वो वेट इसमें ऐड हो गया, उसने सारी एवरेज को डिस्टर्ब कर देना कि नहीं. वन वैल्यू विच इज बियॉन्ड द योर रेंज, दैट इज नोन एज आउटलायर. सो वो सिग्निफिकेंट आउटलायर नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर वो हैं, वो आपकी एवरेज को खराब कर देंगे. सो उनको निकालने का एक तरीका होता है. ऑफ कोर्स I won't be going in this lecture into that. Fourth and very important assumption is that data should be approximately normally distributed. वो जरूरी है आपके parametric test में. I hope the assumptions are clear. One is it should be quantitative data, scale data. Another is it should be normally distributed. Third is observations should not be correlated, and there should not be significant outliers. अब यहाँ पे मैंने एक और एग्जाम्पल दी हुई है, अगर उस पे जाना चाहते हो तो ठीक है, नहीं तो जो अपनी एग्जाम्पल है वो भी ठीक है. आई जस्ट रीड इट फॉर यू. अ रिसर्चर इज प्लानिंग साइकोलॉजिकल इंटरवेंशन स्टडी, क्योंकि साइकोलॉजी में भी हम यूज करते हैं ये सारी चीजें. बट बिफोर ही प्रोसीड्स, ही वांट्स टू कैरेक्टराइज हिज पार्टिसिपेंट्स डिप्रेशन लेवल. He tests each participant on a particular depression index, where anyone who achieves a score of 4 is deemed to have normal level of depression. So उसने कोई स्केल बनाया और उसके अकॉर्डिंगली जिसकी स्कोर 4 है उसका लेवल ऑफ डिप्रेशन नॉर्मल है. तो ऑब्वियसली द पर्सन हु इज हैविंग स्कोर लेस देन 4, level of depression will be less. Whose score is more than 4, level of depression will be more. So lower scores indicate less depression and higher scores indicate greater depression. So he took a sample of 40 participants. Okay. So वो करना क्या चाहता है, उसका रिसर्च क्वेश्चन क्या है या उसका हाइपोथेसिस क्या है? He wants to know whether his sample is representative of the normal population. पहले तो उसने ये चेक करना है कि डाटा नॉर्मल है या नहीं है. नॉर्मेलिटी की असम्पशन चेक करने का तरीका क्या है? Very simple test. How many of you have heard the software SPSS?
Yes, ma'am.
I hope
Yes, ma'am.
many of you might be knowing. Those
Yes,
who
ma'am.
have conducted a search. Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I shall be telling you according to the software SPSS, right? Of course, there are other softwares also, but in this lecture we shall be concentrating upon SPSS. So SPSS में नॉर्मलिटी assumption चेक करना बहुत ही आसान तरीका है. That is, you go to analyze. अगर आपके पास SPSS का सॉफ्टवेयर है, एनालाइज पे जाके, डिस्क्रिप्टिव स्टैट्स पे जाके आप एक्सप्लोर पे जाते हो, ठीक है, ऑटोमेटिकली एक डायलॉग बॉक्स खुल जाता है. दीज आर द इंस्ट्रक्शंस. कोई भी कर सकता है, किसी भी बुक से आपको मिल जाएंगी, लेकिन आपको इंटरप्रेट कैसे करना है वो मैं आपको बताऊंगी. ठीक है. जब एक्सप्लोर का डायलॉग बॉक्स खुला तो वो पूछेगा कि किस चीज की नॉर्मेलिटी आपने चेक करनी है. तो उसमें आप जो भी आपका डाटा आपने ऑलरेडी फीड किया हुआ है उसमें सॉफ्टवेयर में, आप डिपेंडेंट लिस्ट में उस बॉक्स को ड्रैग करोगे तो अपने आप एरो बटन के साथ वो वेरिएबल उसमें चला जाएगा। ठीक है, जब वेरिएबल उसमें चला गया तो यू विल क्लिक ऑन द प्लॉट्स बटन। प्लॉट मींस उसमें नॉर्मलिटी प्लॉट अपने आप बन के आ जाएगा। ठीक है, क्लिक ऑन द प्लॉट्स बटन एंड देन क्लिक ऑन द नॉर्मलिटी प्लॉट विद टेस्ट एंड देन कंटिन्यू। ओके, कंटिन्यू के बाद जब आप ओके का बटन दबाओगे तो आपके सामने स्क्रीन आ जाएगी जिसमें आउटपुट आएगा। दिस काइंड ऑफ आउटपुट विल बी देयर। ऐसा कुछ टेबल आपके सामने आएगा। सिर्फ टेबल को देखो, आप पढ़ो नहीं, मैं आपको साथ साथ एक्सप्लेन करूंगी। टेबल के देखो, उस पे लिखा है टेस्ट ऑफ नॉर्मेलिटी, ओनली टेबल, नॉट द अदर मटेरियल। If you find there is one KS, that is Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, दूसरी तरफ लिखा है Spirovel टेस्ट। दोनों ऐसे ही आएंगे आपके, अगर आपने वो इंस्ट्रक्शंस को फॉलो किया। ठीक है, तो आप डिप्रेशन लेवल की बात कर रहे थे, तो इसका मतलब आपने लेफ्ट साइड पे वो वेरिएबल को डिफाइन कर दिया, डिप्रेशन स्कोर। ठीक है, नाउ दो है, हमें दोनों में से सिर्फ एक को देखना है कि किसको देखना, वो कैसे पता चलेगा। नाउ रीड द लाइंस गिवन अंडर द टेबल। द टेबल प्रेजेंट्स द रिजल्ट्स फ्रॉम द टू वेल नोन टेस्ट ऑफ नॉर्मेलिटी, namely KS test and Spirovel test. Spirovel test is more appropriate for small samples, कि अगर सैंपल साइज आपका 50 से कम है तो आप Spirovel को देखोगे। अगर आपका सैंपल साइज 50 तक में कोई भी देख सकते हो, अगर 50 से ज्यादा है तो यू कैन गो फॉर KS टेस्ट। सो ये तो एज अ रिसर्चर यू नो कि आपका सैंपल साइज क्या है। ठीक है, सो इस क्वेश्चन में अगर पिछली वाली स्लाइड पे मैं जाती हूं तो ही टुक people 40 persons, 40 participants, so sample size is 40 है ना। so sample size is 40, तो कौन सा टेस्ट देखना पड़ेगा मुझे? Spirovel, ठीक है। I will forget about KS test for the time being, right? Now, again, what have to be checked here? That is to be checked is the significance level. Now, presuming that you people know, but still I'll tell you how to interpret this, because the last point in the process is the interpretation. अब देखो बच्चे, इस पे significant value आई आपकी 0.847. Can you do me a favor? Do you have copy and pen with you or paper and pen with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you draw a normal probability diagram?
Yes, ma'am. It's bell shaped.
Bell shaped curve draw कर लो, हाँ। ठीक है,
Done, ma'am.
डन, ओके, वेरी गुड। नाउ यू नो ये जो बेल शेप्ड कर्व होती है ये एक्स एक्सिस को टच नहीं करती। नॉर्मल प्रोबेबिलिटी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जो होती है बेल शेप्ड कर्व एक्सिस को टच नहीं करती। ठीक है, और उसकी दो टेल्स है, उसकी दो टेल्स है ना। दो टेल्स में आप एक साइड पे, एक टेल पे लिख लो 2.5% और दूसरी टेल पे भी लिख लो 2.5%। I'll tell you why. पहले लिखो, one tail 2.5%, another tail 2.5%, और या 0.025 जैसे मर्जी लिख लो, या परसेंटेज में लिख लो या प्रोबेबिलिटी में लिख लो। ठीक है, टोटल एरिया हमेशा 100% होता है। यू नो द प्रोबेबिलिटी इज इक्वल टू 1, राइट?
राइट मैम।
2.5 एक साइड आ गया, 2.5 दूसरी साइड चला गया, बीच में कितना रह गया? 95%। यस और नो?
जी मैम।
यस मैम।
अब देखो, मैंने आपको बोला था दैट आई हैव चोजन लेवल ऑफ सिग्निफिकेंस इज 5%। 5% एरर मैंने अलाउ की। ठीक है, वो 5% एरर मैंने दोनों साइड्स पे इसलिए अलाउ कर ली क्योंकि मैंने 2 टेल टेस्ट लिया। इसका भी कंसेप्ट होता है, एक 1 टेल टेस्ट होता है, एक 2 टेल टेस्ट होता है। उसकी डिटेल में मैं अभी नहीं जा रही। अब मानो कि 2 टेल टेस्ट है, मींस दोनों साइड पे आपने 2.2.5 लिख लिया और बीच में लिख लिया 95%. ओके, नाउ दिस 2.5 एरिया इज नोन एज रिजेक्शन रीजन. दोनों साइड पे रिजेक्शन रीजन. इसका अदर नेम होता है क्रिटिकल रीजन, जहां पे जाके आपका हाइपोथेसिस रिजेक्ट हो जाएगा. ठीक है, और जो बीच में 95% है, दैट इज योर एक्सेप्टेंस रीजन. ठीक है जी, हो गया इतना सबकी कॉपीज पे?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
I cannot use board. Had we been interacting face to face, I could use board. That's why I'm telling you to use your copies. Okay. Now, see the significant value, which is 0.847. ठीक है, रिजेक्शन रीजन मेरा कितना था? 5%, दैट इज 0.05 लिख सकती हूँ उसको मैं. 5% मीन्स 0.05. Level of significance was 5%, means in other words, it is 0.05.
Yes, ma'am.
ओके, अगर तो आपकी ये वैल्यू जो भी सिग्निफिकेंट वैल्यू आई है वो 0.05 वाले एरिया में आ रही है, इसका मतलब योर हाइपोथेसिस इज बीइंग रिजेक्टेड. ठीक है, अगर वो वैल्यू 0.05 से ज्यादा है, मींस इट इज फॉलिंग इन एक्सेप्टेंस रीजन. आप अपनी डायग्राम में देख सकते हो. इसको पढ़ने के बजाय अपनी डायग्राम में देखो तो कभी भी नहीं भूलेगा. अब 0.847 किस रीजन में आ रहा है? एक्सेप्टेंस में आ रहा है कि रिजेक्शन में आ रहा है?
Acceptance.
चेक योर डायग्राम एंड टेल.
Acceptance में.
Acceptance में. It means whatever null hypothesis you assumed has been accepted. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what was
Yes,
your
ma'am.
assumption here? What was your assumption here? You were checking that whether your data is normal or not. So it means your null hypothesis was data is normal. ये आपका हाइपोथेसिस था. अभी टेस्ट नहीं लगा रही मैं, सिर्फ assumption चेक कर रही हूं. ठीक है, assumption मैंने चेक की कि जो मैंने डाटा कलेक्ट किया वो नॉर्मल है या नहीं है. तो my hypothesis was data is normal and my alternate hypothesis is data is not normal. उसको चेक करने के लिए मैंने ये लगा दिया SPSS पे टेस्ट ऑफ नॉर्मेलिटी. स्पीरो विल्क चेक किया, उसके अकॉर्डिंगली मेरा नल हाइपोथेसिस एक्सेप्ट हो रहा है. इट मींस व्हाट विल आई कंक्लूड? Is the data normal or not?
Normal, ma'am.
Data is normally
Data
Yes, ma'am.
is normal.
Normal.
Just
Yes, ma'am. Normal.
just go through this once again before I move to next. Hello. हाँ जी बेटा, लेक्चर ले रही हूँ. लेक्चर 1 o'clock. ठीक हो? कॉलेज? अच्छा. What's the plan? Will you coming? मैं क्यों आना? नहीं, ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ नहीं आ रहे. गल हुई कोई? फिर पता नहीं तो लास्ट टाइम तो नहीं से आए. चलो, टॉक टू यू लेटर. ओके, टेक केयर. हेलो, हाँ जी, इज इट क्लियर दैट डाटा इज नॉर्मल? सो कैन वी मूव अहेड नाउ?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ, so if data is normal you can go for parametric test. अब मुझे पता चल गया है कि मेरे इस पे 1 sample t test लगेगा, ठीक है जी. अब now I am free to apply the test, presuming that I have collected the data and I have checked its normality. Now what is the procedure in SPSS for 1 sample t test? Again, it is very simple. You can find it from any guide of SPSS. That is, you go to analyze, you compare means, because मैं mean ही compare कर रही हूँ ना, population mean और sample mean को compare कर रही हूँ. So you'll take an instruction of compare means. Then you'll go for 1 sample t test, okay, and it will automatically again give you a dialog box. डायलॉग बॉक्स में क्या करना है कि किस वेरिएबल को आप टेस्ट करने जा रहे हो. आप डिप्रेशन लेवल स्कोर को टेस्ट करने जा रहे हो. सो यू विल ट्रांसफर द डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल इनटू द टेस्ट वेरिएबल बॉक्स बाय सिलेक्टिंग इट एंड क्लिकिंग ऑन द एरो बटन. अब वो पूछेगा आपसे कि आप ये टेस्ट वेरिएबल की वैल्यू क्या रख रहे हो. जो मैंने अज्यूम किया है ना, जैसे मैंने अज्यूम किया कि डिप्रेशन लेवल स्कोर अगर 4 है तो वो नॉर्मल है. और जो एग्जांपल मैं आपके साथ पहले ले रही थी कि अगर 50 kg वेट है किसी का तो वो नॉर्मल है, ठीक है. सो एंटर द पॉपुलेशन मीन. दिस इज योर पॉपुलेशन मीन. In case of this example, it is 4. In case of example taken by me for the weight is 50. You are comparing the sample against it in the test value box by changing the current value. जो 0 होगी आप उस पर 4 लिख दिया. जो वैल्यू आपकी डाटा में है, मतलब जो आपने assume किया उसको लिख दिया. And then you will click on the OK button and automatically output screen will be followed. 2 टेबल आपके सामने आएंगे ऐसे. तो पहला टेबल है, ये कुछ नहीं बता रहा, सिर्फ डिस्क्रिप्टिव बता रहा है. अगर आपको एनालाइज करने होंगे डिस्क्रिप्टिव मींस कि टोटल क्या था हमारे पास 40. वी वर हैविंग 40 रिस्पोंडेंट्स, ओके. दिस इज योर वेरिएबल्स. उनका मीन क्या निकल के आया 3.7. और अपनी कॉपी पे नोट कर लो कि ये आपका सैंपल मीन है. पॉपुलेशन मीन को हमने म्यू से डिनोट किया था, इसको एक्स बार से डिनोट करते हैं. ये आपका सैंपल मीन आया 3.72, ठीक है जी. और उस सैंपल की स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन कितनी आई? आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड द कंसेप्ट ऑफ स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन इज नथिंग बट डेविएशन फ्रॉम द एक्चुअल मीन, ठीक है. लेकिन सपोज 40 लोगों का डिप्रेशन लेवल मैंने चेक किया है तो हर एक का तो सेम होएगा नहीं. कोई 4 से कम होएगा, कोई 4 से ज्यादा होएगा. तो उसकी एक्चुअल डेविएशन क्या है वो स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन बताता है. एंड देन स्टैंडर्ड एरर ऑफ मीन इज अनदर स्टैटिस्टिक्स टू नो. बट दिस इज nothing to be done with your hypothesis testing. But in case you wish to interpret this in your study, you can do that also. Now coming to the second table, which is basically the output of the 1 sample test. Now if you see there, it is written that test value is equal to 4. This is nothing but your hypothesized value. इस एग्जाम्पल में हमने नॉर्मल डिप्रेशन स्कोर 4 लिया है, इसलिए 4 लिख दिया. हम वेट वाली एग्जाम्पल की बात कर रहे थे, हमने उसमें हाइपोथेसाइज्ड वैल्यू ली 50 kg, तो वहां पे हम 5050 लिखते, ठीक है जी. अब ये टी की वैल्यू, टी स्टैटिस्टिक्स है, टी की वैल्यू आ गई. डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम क्या होता है? n-1 होता है हमेशा, वो आ गया, ठीक है. ये आपकी आ गई सिग्निफिकेंट वैल्यू. हाइपोथेसिस टेस्ट एक्सेप्ट टेस्टिंग के बाद हाइपोथेसिस एक्सेप्ट हो रहा है या रिजेक्ट हो रहा है, वो सिग्निफिकेंस लेवल से ही, सिग्निफिकेंस वैल्यू से ही पता चलेगा. ये आ रही है 0.022. अब फिर आप अपनी डायग्राम पे वापस आओ. डायग्राम को देख के बताओ कि ये वैल्यू के बेस पे आपका हाइपोथेसिस रिजेक्ट हो रहा है, एक्सेप्ट हो रहा है. Be honest to yourself. Don't look at the figures. Just look at your diagram and tell me on the basis of this whether the hypothesis has been accepted or rejected. Rejected. Why so? Because it is falling in the range of rejection level. है ना, 0.05 से पहले है ना,
0.05 से कम है ना?
कम है तो रिजेक्टेड है। आपका हाइपोथेसिस था क्या बच्चे? व्हाट वाज योर नल हाइपोथेसिस?
Mean is equal to 50.
नॉट मीन इज इक्वल टू 50। पूरा हाइपोथेसिस हमने क्या लिखा है इंटरप्रिटेशन की पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से। इस क्वेश्चन में डिप्रेशन स्कोर की बात हो रही है। हाउ विल यू इंटरप्रेट इट? यस, इंटरप्रिटेशन इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट, क्योंकि एनालिसिस तो कोई भी कर देगा जिसको स्टेप्स याद हो गए। टेबल सामने आ गया, इसको इंटरप्रेट कैसे करना है?
Ma'am, there is significant difference in the depression level of students or responses.
Significant difference, yeah. There is a significant difference in the sample and population mean basically. आपस में तो डिफरेंस है ही, वो तो मुझे पता ही है, ठीक है। हम चेक क्या कर रहे हैं कि योर डिप्रेशन लेवल स्कोर जो पॉपुलेशन का मैंने ज्यूम किया है दैट वाज 4, ठीक है। फिर मैंने सैंपल का चेक किया, वो निकल के आया आपका 3.72। अर्थमेटिकली तो वो हमेशा ही अलग होंगे, है ना। अर्थमेटिकली वैल्यू कभी भी सेम नहीं हो सकती क्योंकि सैंपल्स आपके अलग अलग है, साइज ही फर्क है, सैंपल का अलग है, पॉपुलेशन का अलग है। सो आई हैव टू प्रूव कि स्टैटिस्टिकली ये डिफरेंट है या सेम है। और स्टैटिस्टिकली प्रूव करने के लिए हम टेस्ट लगाते हैं, ठीक है। और हमें पता चला कि योर हाइपोथेसिस हैज बीन रिजेक्टेड। इट मींस पॉपुलेशन मीन जो मैंने 4 लिया था वो एक्चुअली में 4 नहीं है। सो देयर इज अ significant, statistically significant difference in the population mean as well as sample mean. मतलब सैंपल मीन जो पॉपुलेशन का रिप्रेजेंटेटिव नहीं हुआ प्रॉपर, है ना। और दूसरी एग्जांपल जो मैंने कॉलेज वाले स्टूडेंट्स की ली थी 50 kg, अगर यहाँ पे वो होती तब भी मैंने यही कहना था कि एवरेज वेट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ द कॉलेज इज नॉट 50 kg. There is a statistically significant difference between the population mean and the sample mean. So we are rejecting the null hypothesis and accepting the alternate hypothesis. So mean depression level score is not 4 or mean average weight of the students is not 50 kg. This is your interpretation. Any doubt in this?
No, ma'am.
Should I move further? किसी को लग रहा होगा fast, so please you can stop me in between and ask. Because idea is to understand the concepts, not to hurriedly finish it, right? So this was a case of one sample t test. को आपको पता था कि मेरे पास एक सैंपल है तो मुझे कौन सा टेस्ट लगाना है। अब शायद मतलब अगर दूसरा सैंपल आपके पास आएगा तो आप उसमें वो वाला टेस्ट नहीं लगाओगे क्योंकि सैंपल अगर एक नहीं है तो। So for example, now the basic example which I took earlier was कि मैंने कॉलेज स्टूडेंट्स का वेट चेक करना है। Now something came to my mind कि मेल और फीमेल का वेट एवरेज तो कभी भी सेम नहीं होता, है ना। फीमेल का एवरेज वेट जनरली कम होता है रादर देन मेल्स। तो मैंने कहा कि मुझे स्टडी कंडक्ट करनी है कि मेल और फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स का क्या एवरेज वेट बराबर है। मुझे पता नहीं बराबर होता, लेकिन मैंने अभी टेस्ट नहीं किया। सो मेरे लिए दोनों बराबर हुए अकॉर्डिंग टू नल हाइपोथेसिस, बिकॉज नल हाइपोथेसिस सेज देयर इज नो डिफरेंस। ओके, सो आई शैल प्रिज्यूम दैट एवरेज वेट ऑफ फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स इज इक्वल टू एवरेज वेट ऑफ मेल स्टूडेंट। कितना है वो मुझे लेना देना नहीं है। समझ आ गई बात? मेरा नल हाइपोथेसिस क्या हुआ? एवरेज वेट ऑफ फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स इज इक्वल टू एवरेज वेट ऑफ मेल स्टूडेंट्स। ऑल्टरनेटिव क्या हुआ? नो, दोज आर नॉट सेम। ठीक है जी। तो इसका मतलब यहाँ पे मैं वन सैंपल नहीं लगा सकती क्योंकि मुझे दो अलग अलग सैंपल चूज करने पड़ेंगे। फीमेल स्टूडेंट्स की वेट को अलग से एवरेज निकालनी पड़ेगी, मेल स्टूडेंट्स की वेट की अलग से एवरेज निकालनी पड़ेगी, दोनों के अलग अलग सैंपल लेने पड़ेंगे। ठीक है। So now I'm reading this slide for you. The independent sample t-test is a test that compares two groups यहाँ पे male and female on the mean value of continuous normally distributed variable. These are all the assumptions which I told you to take into consideration for the parametric test. The test assumes that the difference in the mean score of dependent variable is found because the influence of independent variable that distinguishes the two groups. फॉर एग्जाम्पल ये सब जगह अप्लाई हो सकता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल आप मेडिसिन देखना चाहते हो कि ड्रग ए और ड्रग बी का आपस में मतलब उनका इफेक्ट सेम है टू इम्प्रूव द एनी डिजीज इन द पेशेंट्स को करेक्ट करने के लिए, है ना. तो सोशियोलॉजी में आर मैन मोर सेटिस्फाइड विद द जॉब्स देन वुमेन, उस पे भी ये टेस्ट लग सकता है. There are 101 examples you can see. Economics, is the economic growth of developing nations larger than the economic growth of the first world? Marketing, does the customer segment A spend more on groceries than the customer segment B? बहुत सारी examples आप ले सकते हो जिसमें independent sample test लगता है. Independent word क्यों use किया गया? Because one sample has nothing to do with the other. Male students के weight का female students के weight के साथ कोई relation ही नहीं है ना. सेगमेंट ए के कस्टमर्स का सेगमेंट बी के कस्टमर्स के साथ कोई रिलेशन ही नहीं है. सो दैट इज व्हाई इट इज नोन एज इंडिपेंडेंट सैंपल टी टेस्ट. अगेन वी विल चेक द असम्पशंस, द सेम असम्पशंस. द वेरिएबल शुड बी ऑन कंटिन्यूअस स्केल. Then independent variable should consist of two categorically independent variables. Now what do you mean by categorical variables or groups? जहां पे कैटेगरी होती हैं. एक जेंडर में कैटेगरी आ गई ना, मेल और फीमेल, ठीक है. इसी तरह कंपनीज है दो, तो मैं उसमें कर दिए एक कंपनी ए कंपनी बी. दैट इज नॉमिनल डाटा, है ना. नॉमिनल कैटेगरी है, नॉट डाटा. डाटा तो आपको मिलेगा प्रॉपर क्वांटिटेटिव, लेकिन कैटेगरी जो दो होनी बहुत जरूरी है, विच शुड बी इंडिपेंडेंट ऑफ ईच अदर. थर्ड इज ऑब्जर्वेशन शुड बी इंडिपेंडेंट, like I said in the one sample t-test also, which means there is no relationship between the observations in each group or between the groups themselves. For example, the different participants in each group with no participant being in more than one group. मतलब कि एक के ऑब्जर्वेशन दूसरे से बिल्कुल डिफरेंट हो. हाँ, एक चीज और, sometimes we get confused as a researcher, क्या सैंपल साइज सेम होना चाहिए मेल और फीमेल का? No, it's not necessary. Because they are independent of each other, so there can be the size of the sample may vary to some extent. Okay, then there should not be significant outliers. The independent variable should be approximately normally distributed for each of the independent variable, male के लिए भी और female के लिए भी. There needs to be homogeneity of variance. This is an additional assumption. क्योंकि दो तरह के वेरिएंस आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड इज द स्क्वायर ऑफ योर स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन. ठीक है, वो वेरिएंसेस हम अज्यूम करके रखते हैं कि दे आर होमोजीनियस. उसको भी मैं चेक करूंगी, पहले असम्पशन को चेक करूंगी. ठीक है जी. आर दिस असम्पशंस क्लियर एक्सेप्ट वन? बाकी तो सारी सेम है पुरानी वाली. शुड आई मूव फर्दर?
जी मैम.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
ओके जी. Now, the example which we are taking basically is with us, but यहाँ पे जो मैंने example आपको explain करनी है वो भी हम पढ़ लेते हैं. A study was designed to explore the factors that impact on respondents' psychological adjustment and well-being. The survey was distributed to the members of the general public. Total sample size were 434, in which 43% were males and 57% were females. And they were between the age of 18 to 82, जिनका सर्वे किया गया, like adult age group, and mean came out to be 37.4. Now, what is the research question in this example? Is there any significant difference in the mean self-esteem scores of males and females? Again, gender की बात हुई, है ना. मैंने जो अपनी example पहले बोली है उसमें क्या था? Is there any significant difference in the weight average weight of male and female students, right? On the basis of this research question, what will be my null hypothesis that average weight of female students is equal to average weight of male student? और यहाँ पे क्या आएगा on the basis of that average self-esteem scores of males is equal to average self-esteem scores of female. तो मैंने categorize किस basis पे किया हुआ है? Gender में, ठीक है? Now, when you feed the data in SPSS, they always ask you कि gender male को और female को आपने coding कैसे किया है? That is very very important. ठीक है? ये आपकी मर्जी, आप जैसे मर्जी करो, लेकिन you need to tell the SPSS software what I presume by male and what I presume by female. For example, males were coded as 1 and females were coded as 2. Okay? And then the data was fed in this software. What is the procedure for running this independent t-test? Again, you are comparing the means. So analyze, compare the means. Since it is independent t-test, you will click on that test. Okay. Automatically, again, on the main menu, will ask what is a test variable. You will write the dependent variable. Okay. Move the independent variable into the section known as grouping variable. अब independent variable कौन सा हुआ यहाँ पे? Gender. ठीक है, जेंडर के बेस के ऊपर और टेस्ट क्या करने चाह रहे हो आप? इसलिए क्वेश्चन वहां पे आओ. टेस्ट में करने जा रही हूँ मीन सेल्फ एस्टीम स्कोर्स. ठीक है, सो मीन सेल्फ एस्टीम स्कोर इज द डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल एंड जेंडर इज योर ग्रुपिंग वेरिएबल. ओके, नाउ विल आस्क ग्रुपिंग वेरिएबल में आपने जेंडर तो लिख दिया, लेकिन जेंडर को डिफाइन करो. मेल कौन है, फीमेल कौन है. ठीक है, सो आई विल कोड 1 as male, 2 as female. So we'll have to write in that box. And after that, you will click continue and OK, and output will be in front of you. Again, two tables. First table is basically your descriptives, and second table is your test results. So coming to the first table, as I said in the question, there were a total of 434 people, and कितने percent male थे, कितने percent female थे. So means 184 were males in the data from where the data has been collected, and 248 were the females. और देखो आप मीन वाले में देखो, मेल्स की स्कोर निकल के आई है 34.02 और फीमेल की निकल के आई है 33.24. अर्थमेटिकली तो ये डिफरेंट है, मुझे पता है, लेकिन मुझे क्या चेक करना है कि स्टेटिस्टिकली इनमें कोई सिग्निफिकेंट डिफरेंस है या नहीं है. ठीक है, सिमिलरली उनकी अपनी अपनी स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन निकल आई, अपना अपना स्टैंडर्ड एरर मीन निकल आया. नाउ I will have to check one assumption. If you remember, assumption में मैंने last लिखी थी homogeneity of variances, कि मुझे मान के चलना है कि मेरे जो variances है दोनों ग्रुप के वो सेम है, homogeneous है. ठीक है. Now if you see this table, उस पे लिखा हुआ है just a minute, this Levine's test for equality of variances. So this Levine's test is a test which check whether the variances are homogeneous or not. ठीक है, so सबसे पहले I have to check this assumption. Forgetting all other things, I shall be just concentrating on these values up to this only, क्योंकि पहले मैंने variances की assumption लेनी है. So what will be my null hypothesis? That variances are homogeneous or equal. My null hypothesis is variances are equal. My alternate will be variances are not equal. Okay. Now again go to your diagram of normal distribution and check the significant value. 0.088. हाँ जी, anybody? Hypothesis accepted or rejected? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, audible, ma'am.
लिविंस टेस्ट के बेस पे आपकी असम्पशन मीट कर रही या नहीं कर रही, कुछ और नहीं देखना, सिर्फ यहाँ इसको देखना बस.
Accepted.
Accepted means what?
Means there is no significant difference between the average.
No. I'm just checking the assumption of equality of variances.
There is no significant difference between the variance of male and female.
Simply the variances are equal. ठीक है, हमें assumption क्या ली थी? That
Variants are homogeneous, ma'am.
Homogeneous or equal, right? Homogeneous is equal, and the alternate was variances are not homogeneous. It is lying in the acceptance region. Okay, so it means our assumption that variances are homogeneous has been accepted. Done. पहले हमें ये चीज चेक करना, टेस्ट के बाद में जाना. I have told you earlier also. Firstly, we need to check all the assumptions. जो नॉर्मेलिटी वाली है वो भी हर बारी करनी है. मैंने हर बारी आपको करवाई नहीं है, मैंने पैटर्न आपको बता दिया कि कैसे चेक करना है. लेकिन एवरी टाइम इफ यू रियली नीड द ट्रू रिजल्ट्स ना, अदरवाइज क्या होता है बच्चे, जो सॉफ्टवेयर है ना, दैट इज गार्बेज इन गार्बेज आउट. बड़ी मतलब इसको बड़ा क्लियरली कहते हैं कि जो डाटा आपने डाला उसने तो कुछ ना कुछ रिजल्ट निकाल ही देना है, पर डाटा आपका क्लीन है कि नहीं. अगर आपने assumption फॉलो ही नहीं की और फिर भी वो वाले टेस्ट लगा रहे हो, बाद में रिजल्ट्स आपके गलत भी आ सकते हैं, है ना, इन एक्चुअल जो आप स्टडी कर रहे हो. सो हर बार ये assumption चेक करना बड़ा जरूरी है. ठीक है, सो आई हैव चेक दिस assumption and according to this the variances are equally. अब इसको देखो, सिर्फ यहां तक देखो, दो लाइंस लिखी हुई यहाँ पे. इक्वल वेरियंस इज assumed, इक्वल वेरियंस इज नॉट assumed. अगर तो ये एक्सेप्ट हो गया तो मुझे ये वाली लाइन के रिजल्ट चेक करने होंगे अपने टेस्ट के लिए. ठीक है, अगर ये रिजेक्शन में आ जाता तो कोई बात नहीं, उसकी कोई इट्स नॉट बिग डील के वो नहीं है. अगर रिजेक्शन में आ गया तो मेरे पास दूसरी ऑप्शन है, इक्वल वेरियंस इज नॉट assumed, तो मैं इसका डाटा देखूंगी. ठीक है, नाउ इट इज क्लियर दैट वेरियंसेस आर इक्वल. नाउ आई विल चेक द हाइपोथेसिस, जो आप पहले बात कर रहे थे क्वेश्चन में, कि टोटल सेल्फ एस्टीम स्कोर्स ऑफ मेल एंड फीमेल इक्वल है या नहीं है. उसको टेस्ट करने के लिए आई शेल बी गोइंग टू दिस सिग्निफिकेंट लेवल. ये देखो, ये टी टेस्ट की वैल्यू आ गई, ये डिग्रीज ऑफ फ्रीडम आ गई 430 उसने लिखा है, 432 होना चाहिए, चलो एनीवेज. एंड सिग्निफिकेंट लेवल आपका आया 0.135. अब फिर अपनी डायग्राम खोलो, उसमें देखो 0.135 के बेसिस पे आपका एक्चुअल वाला जो हाइपोथेसिस है वो एक्सेप्ट हो रहा है या रिजेक्ट हो रहा है. लेवल ऑफ सिग्निफिकेंस 5% है आपका, 0.05.
एक्सेप्ट हो रहा है मैम.
एक्सेप्ट हो रहा है. सो व्हाट विल यू इंटरप्रेट?
Ma'am, average self-esteem score of male equal to average self-esteem score of female.
Very right. Or in other words, there is no significant difference in the average score, self-esteem scores of males and average self-esteem scores of female. और अगर मैं weight sample college वाली लेती हूँ, तो there is no statistical significance difference in the average weight of male and average weight of females. आ गया समझ?
Yes, ma'am.
आराम से इसको देख लो. कोई ब्रेक तो नहीं चाहिए किसी को? मुझे तो नहीं चाहिए वैसे. अगर चाहिए तो मुझे बता दो. 5 minutes I can. Whatever you say. I don't know your system there. Is it a continuing class till 1 or?
As per schedule, we give 5 minutes break. If
Whatever you
participants
say, whatever you say, I'll go accordingly. You tell me. Because before
I think
proceeding
it's 12 a.m. We will have a short break for 5 minutes, and
sure,
after 5 minutes we will start.
Sure. We'll meet again. Right. Anji, are you back?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt whatever has been done till now? Or should I take the doubts later on? Should I continue?
Ji.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So we have done independent t-test, and there could be cases that the two samples are not independent. They are related. Example, people are attending this refresher course, the participants, and you wish to know that what is the addition to your knowledge after this refresher course. Okay. And here the research problem will be that whether this refresher course had a significant difference in the knowledge criteria of the participants or not. Okay. So we will assume that, sorry, this is just an assumption, that there is not any improvement, there is no change before and after this refresher course. So in that case, this is not an independent sample test because the same sample is being studied twice. Let's say you are a group of 50 participants. Your knowledge was tested before this and the knowledge will be tested after this refresher course. Means there is only single sample which is being tested twice. Same is the case in many organizations in HR department or in other HR department provides training or executive programs for their employees. And what is the basic criteria in that is that they wish to know whether the training being provided by them or the executive development programs provided by them are having any significant difference in the knowledge or the working style of the employees. So that becomes a case of paired t-test. Why paired t-test? Because the same group is being tested twice, that becomes a pair. So in such situations, you can never go for independent t-test. I hope it is clear where it is applicable. So the paired sample t-test is a statistical procedure used to determine whether the mean differences between the two sets of observations is zero. Again, I assumed that there is no improvement or deterioration in the knowledge. I presume that the knowledge before the training and knowledge after the training is same. So means the difference between the two is assumed to be zero. It compares the mean between two related groups. Why related? Because the same group is being studied twice on the same continuous dependent variable before and after situation. In a paired sample t-test, each subject or entity is measured twice. Subject or entity means respondent, resulting in pairs of observations. Suppose researcher is interested in evaluating the effectiveness of company training program, like the example I gave you earlier also. Procedure would be to measure the performance of the sample of employees before and after completing the program and analyze the differences using a paired sample t-test. And mind it, here the sample size will be same because it is only one sample which is being studied twice. I hope it is clear that where to use paired t-test. Now how to implement it? Again, we need to check the assumptions, the same assumptions, that the data should be on continuous scale. Independent variables should consist of two categorically related groups or matched pairs, data of the two sets from the same respondents. There should not be significant outliers in the differences between the two related groups, and the distribution of difference in the dependent variable between the two related groups should be approximately normally distributed. The same assumptions for the parametric test. Now, here the example which has been taken to prove it is that the researcher wishes to explore the impact of a program designed to increase students' confidence in their ability to survive a compulsory statistics score. Statistics के किसी कोर्स का वो चेक करना चाहते हैं कि कितना उनका कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल इंक्रीज हुआ या नहीं हुआ. The students were asked to complete a fear of statistic test, both before and after the program. So one is time 1 data, another is time 2 data. The two variables from the data file have been taken, that is before and after. Now, what is the research question here? To check whether there is a statistically significant difference in the mean scores of course of the students for the time 1 and time, right? Again, what is the process in SPSS? We go to analyze, compare means, and then we'll select paired sample t-test because I know I have to apply paired sample t-test. SPSS is not going to guide which test you have to use. This is up to the researcher to understand which test is applicable on the research problem. Click on the two variables that you are interested in, that is two kind of scores, before and after. With both the variables highlighted, move them into the box. अपने आप जो वहाँ पे आएगा, उसका नाम है paired variables. And clicking the arrow button, they will move to that box, and then you will click on OK, and output sheet will be in front of you. Again, two tables. One is the descriptive table, paired sample statistics. Now you check that there are two means again, because one is the average score before that program, that is 40.17, and another is the mean score after the program, that is 37.50, and n, that is the size of sample, is same 30, because 30 logo ka data liya gaya. Okay. Now coming to the results of the paired sample test. You see that in independent sample t-test, in the table, there were basically two rows, and here there is a single row. ये फर्क है दोनों में. Reason being, there were the two different groups, and two different groups were analyzed differently. Okay, here there is a single group, and we are going to check their outputs, the difference in their outputs. That is, there is a pair, and fear of stats time 1 minus fear of stats time 2. That's the difference of the two we take here rather than taking them individually. And its mean came out to be 2.67 approximately. Standard deviation 2.7, standard error this. Okay. T-test value is 5.394 and degrees of freedom is n minus 1, so it is coming as 29. And this is your significant level, which will tell you whether the hypothesis taken by you has been accepted or rejected. Now you will interpret it. Hanji, what will be the interpretation? Yes, anyone? What does it mean, 0.000?
Ma'am, it shows that the
पहले बताओ हाइपोथेसिस रिजेक्ट हुआ कि एक्सेप्ट हुआ?
रिजेक्ट हुआ मैम.
रिजेक्ट हुआ, ठीक है.
हाँ जी, जो हमने टेस्ट किया था वो सिग्निफिकेंटली उसकी वजह से स्कोर डिफर कर रहे हैं.
Differ कर रहे हैं. So there is a statistical significant difference in the scores from time 1 to time 2. और एग्जाम्पल जो मैंने पहले ली कि आप पार्टिसिपेंट्स पहले और बाद में स्कोर्स आपकी ली गई आफ्टर द रिफ्रेशर कोर्स एंड बिफोर द रिफ्रेशर कोर्स. देयर इज a statistical difference, significant difference rather, in the scores of the participants before and after the refresher course. ये ब्रेक का मुझे लगता है नुकसान हो गया, सब चुप होकर बैठ गए हैं.
नहीं
थक गए हैं.
the experiment has been effective.
Yeah, of course. Any doubt in this? So I hope one sample test and two sample tests are clear to you. I presume it again, this is null hypothesis. I have to prove it. Okay, one sample test and two sample tests. In two sample tests, we have the independent t-test and we have the paired test. Okay. Then, what if the samples are more than 2? There is a possibility when the samples are more than 2. there we cannot go for this mean test. The test which is applicable, just a minute. हाँ जी बेटा lecture चल. हेलो हाँ जी बेटा lecture चल. मैम वी आर नॉट कमिंग अगेन ही आ रहे हैं ना बनाए किते ना कादे लिए असली वैसे अफसोस नहीं असली नहीं आ रहे अपने नहीं बनना बात कल कर दी मुझे ना हेलो हाँ जी so when the samples are more than 2 then we apply ANOVA, that is analysis of variance. It is applicable when one has more than here should be one has more than 2 samples under the study coming from different populations or same population with different treatments. It's a hypothesis testing procedure used to determine whether the mean differences exist for 2 or more samples or treatment. This is basically the same thing. Assumption वही है हमारी, hypothesis हमारा वही है कि suppose samples 3 हो गए या 4 हो गए या 5 हो गए. I will assume that the average is the same. For example, taking a very simple example, taking a simple research problem. कि मैंने कहा कि पहले मैंने बोला कि average weight of the students of the college, ठीक है? फिर मैंने कहा कि average weight of female and male students of the college, ठीक है? Suppose अब मैं determine करने जा रही हूँ average height और weight जो भी ले रही हूँ of first year students versus second year students versus third year students. ओके चेक में फिर भी डिफरेंट मीन ही कर रही हूं लेकिन अब सैंपल 2 से ज्यादा हो गए. सो इन ऑर्डर टू प्रूव आई विल अगेन टेक एन assumption दैट एवरेज वेट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ फर्स्ट ईयर is equal to second year is equal to third year. Okay, what will be the alternate hypothesis in this case as per you? Anyone? What could be the alternate hypothesis?
Ma'am, there is a significant difference in the variances.
Pardon?
Let me repeat, ma'am. Wait a second.
Ma'am, average weight of first year students is not equal to second year students is not equal to third year students.
No.
Ma'am, there is a significant difference in the average weight of the students in different groups.
No, there is one thing which you need to take care. Listen, I am assuming that all the 3 classes students are having same average weight. That was my null hypothesis, right? But when I talk about alternate hypothesis, I can't say that average weight of first year is not equal to second year is not equal to third year. Reason being,
I think I should not say this. I think I mentioned it wrongly. I think actually I'm not getting exactly what answer I should tell you, but yeah, I have understood that I should not have said this, that there is
okay. Basically what you can say is that all the means may not be equal. All the means mean जितने भी sample है 3 है 4 है 5 है 6 है.
Yeah, I got
क्योंकि there could be it's for the whole group. I'm telling that it could be the case कि first year student और second year students का average weight तो बराबर है statistically, लेकिन first year और third year का बराबर नहीं है या second year और third year का बराबर नहीं है. ठीक है, जरूरी नहीं है कि तीनों आपस में अलग हो, कोई 2 सेम भी हो सकते हैं. This is what the studies are being conducted in the marketing area specifically, that when we get the new products in the market, है ना, different brands or different उनके value additions होती हैं उनमें, they always take into consideration the need of the groups in the market. है ना, whenever they introduce a product or anything or service, they take into consideration what is the need of the public. For example, कोई ब्रांड पर्टिकुलर कुछ या कोई खाने वाली चीज है या कुछ पहनने वाली चीज है, कुछ भी यूज करने वाली चीज है, they are taking into consideration, let's say, age. So they take into consideration, let's say 4 age groups with them. One is up to 20, then 20 to 40, let's say 21 to 40, and similarly 40 to 60 and 60 and above. Now, all those 4 age groups may not have the same kind of preferences for the product. And maybe any 2 groups are having same preferences, but the 3rd group is having different, or the 4th group is having different. It can be done on the basis of the income also, that one particular income level, that is lower income level or middle income level or your higher income level, the preferences for the products may be different. The requirements for the product may be different. So this is actually much of the use in the this marketing area, when they come to know the needs of the person on the basis of their preferences. Okay, so then we write null alternate hypothesis that all means may not be equal, means कोई 2 बराबर हो भी सकते हैं, लेकिन अनोवा ने आपको ये नहीं बताना कि कौन से 2 बराबर है और कौन से 2 बराबर नहीं है या 3 बराबर नहीं है. अनोवा will just tell you whether your null hypothesis is accepted or rejected. और एक चीज और है कि why we are using word variance here instead of mean, जबकि मैं mean check करने जा रही हूँ. Basically, the test which is applicable in more than 2 sample is F test. F test जो होता है, that F test is basically a test of the variances only. So the term analysis of variance appears to be misnomer, since the objective is to analyze differences among the means of the samples rather than the variances of the samples. So basically हम क्या करते हैं कि F test लगा रहे हैं, इसलिए उसका नाम variances के through लगा रहे हैं. I'll tell you how. ANOVA is a short word for analysis of variance. The one-way analysis of variance is used to determine whether there are any significant differences between the means of more than 2 independent or unrelated groups. जैसे मैंने different age groups बोली, तो naturally they are unrelated. Different income group बोले, naturally they are unrelated. ठीक है? One way means मैं सिर्फ एक ही variable को लेके बात कर रही हूँ. For example, to understand whether the exam performance differed based on the test anxiety level among the students, dividing the students into 3 independent groups: low, medium and high stressed students. तो 3 कैटेगरी से आ गई, इसका मतलब मेरे सैंपल 3 हो गए. ठीक है? Also, it is important to mention here that one-way ANOVA statistics cannot tell which specific groups were significantly different from each other. It only tells that at least 2 groups were different. This is what I said in the beginning. ये नहीं बताएगा कि कौन से दोनों ग्रुप अलग है. अगर सपोज null hypothesis आपका रिजेक्ट हो जाता है, alternate एक्सेप्ट होता है, तो आप कहते हैं हाँ all means may not be equal, means averages जो हैं उनमें डिफरेंट है, पर कौन से ग्रुप्स डिफरेंट है वो नहीं आपको ये बताएगा. उसके लिए हमें क्या फिर यूज करना पड़ता है? पोस्ट हॉक टेस्ट. उससे भी आगे एडवांस है ANOVA के बाद. So this is a limitation of ANOVA, that it will not tell you which 2 groups are different. Again, coming to the assumptions, the data should be the scale data. Independent variable should consist of more than 2 categorical independent groups. अगर 2 होते तो मैं simply आपका independent t-test लगा देती. Third, there should be independence of observations. Okay, there should be no significant outliers. Dependent variable should be approximately normally distributed for each category of independent variable. And there needs to be homogeneity of variances. It can be tested again by Levene's test. Now, for example, the problem here is, research question here is, to compare the level of perceived stress for the 3 different age group Procedure in SPSS is to go to analyze, compare mean, and then one-way ANOVA. Again, when you click, a dialog box will appear and you will transfer the dependent variable. वो क्या है आपका stress level, ठीक है, into dependent list box. और independent variable आपका क्या है, age, that will come into, वहां पे आ जाएगा factor क्या है, वो factor वाला box खुलेगा, उसमें आप age डाल दोगे, ठीक है. Again age की, sorry, again age को categories को हम coding करके उस पे करेंगे. Then click on the continue button and tick the descriptive check-in box, stats area and then homogeneity of variances. ये सारे को tick हम कर देंगे उसी box में, एक ही box में, and then continue and OK. Output sheet will appear. ये देखो 3 एज ग्रुप थे मेरे, 1, 2, 3, ठीक है. टोटल रिस्पॉन्डेंट्स उसने लिए 433, 147 एक कैटेगरी के हैं, 152 दूसरी कैटेगरी है, 134 तीसरी कैटेगरी के हैं. ये डिस्क्रिप्टिव बता रही हूँ मैं. तीनों का मीन निकला अलग अलग, क्योंकि अर्थमेटिकली तो कभी भी सेम नहीं होएगा, इट इज बाय चांस हो जाए, क्योंकि हर बंदे की अपनी व्यूज है. ये इसका टोटल का मीन निकला, ठीक है. ये स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन, स्टैंडर्ड एरर्स, ये रेंज है. अगर आपने किसी ने उसको बताना है कि भी मिनिमम स्कोर क्या थी, मैक्सिमम स्कोर क्या थी, है ना, दिस इज फॉर दैट पर्पस. नाउ testing the homogeneity of variance, again I have used Levene's test here. Levene's test value is 0.410, ठीक है. यहाँ पे सिग्निफिकेंट वैल्यू आ रही है 0.664. उसके पहले मैं, अगर आप चाहते हो तो मैं बता सकती हूँ कि डिग्री ऑफ फ्रीडम 2 तरह की यहाँ पे क्यों लिखी है. देखो, जब मैं अनोवा की बात करती हूँ ना, अनोवा इज एनालिसिस ऑफ वेरिएंस, उसमें ना 2 तरह की वैल्यूज, अगर आप मैनुअली भी सॉल्व करो ना, आपको टेबल्स दिखेंगे बुक्स में, 2 तरह की वैल्यूज होती हैं. एक होता है डिफरेंस बिटवीन द सैंपल्स, जैसे 3 सैंपल है इस केस में, तो तीनों में कोई ना कोई तो डिफरेंस होएगा ही होएगा, है ना. दूसरी कैटेगरी होती है डिफरेंस विद इन द सैंपल्स. विद इन द सैंपल्स मीन्स कि सपोज फर्स्ट कैटेगरी मेरी है एज ग्रुप 18 to 29 एंड देयर आई हैव टेकन 147 रिस्पोंडेंट्स. अब ये 147 रिस्पोंडेंट्स का डाटा भी तो सेम नहीं ना होएगा, सो इनकी आपस में भी तो डिफरेंसेस हो सकते हैं. सिमिलरली सेकेंड कैटेगरी 30 to 44, 152 respondent, they can have the different means, different values, average जो मैंने लेनी है जिसकी, पर actual values different होएगी. Similarly for the third category, so the difference is in 2 category, one is among the samples and another is between the samples. Sample मेरे कितने थे, 3, 3 minus 1 degrees of freedom is 2, okay. टोटल मेरे कितने रिस्पोंडेंट थे, 433, और 433 क्या है, टोटल n, विच इज इक्वल टू n1 प्लस n2 प्लस n3, ठीक है. और फर्स्ट कैटेगरी की डिग्रीज ऑफ फ्रीडम क्या होएगी, n1 माइनस 1, ठीक है. दूसरे की क्या होएगी, n2 माइनस 1, तीसरे की क्या होएगी, n3 माइनस 1. तीनों को जब मैं इकट्ठा टोटल करूंगी वो हो जाएगा n1 प्लस n2 प्लस n3 माइनस 3, ठीक है, विच कम्स आउट 433 माइनस 3, सो दैट केम आउट एज 430. ऐसे डिग्रीज ऑफ फ्रीडम अपने आप भी निकल जाती है, मैनुअली भी आप कर सकते हो. नाउ सिग्निफिकेंट वैल्यू इज कमिंग 0.664. नाउ योर वर्क स्टार्ट्स. इंटरप्रिटेशन. Yes, anyone? Variances are homogeneous or not?
No, ma'am, these are not homogeneous.
Why not?
Ma'am, the null hypothesis is accepted and
Accepted means they are homogeneous, sir.
Ma'am, the
Hypothesis.
significance level is more than 5%, 0.664. So it
So
means
hypothesis is accepted,
not true. Null hypothesis is not true.
not proved, rejected.
Yes.
what was the null
Right.
hypothesis? Can you please tell me again? I think I forgot.
It's written here, testing of homogeneity of variances.
Oh, okay.
Testing of homogeneity of variances. Are the variances homogeneous or not? मैं तो ये प्रूव कर रही हूँ break had a negative impact on the performance of the participants.
मैम पार्टिसिपेंट जो है चैट बॉक्स में भी रिप्लाई कर रहे हैं.
अच्छा वो मुझे दिख नहीं रहा, आप बोल सकते हैं वो, क्योंकि मैंने स्क्रीन की हुई ना पूरी,
जी जी,
इसलिए मुझे दिख नहीं रहा. So it is accepted or rejected?
जी सुमन पहुजा जी आप बताएं, आप चैट बॉक्स में लिख रहे हैं.
Ma'am, there is a homogeneity of variance. So null hypothesis.
So hypothesis accepted.
हाँ जी ma'am.
Yeah, so homogeneity of variances. Now these are the NOVA results. मैंने पहले भी बोला है कि हमें पहले assumptions meet करनी है, then we have to go to the specific test results. Okay. Now this is a NOVA table. If you remember, I told you 2-3 minutes ago that we check the difference between the groups, mean samples, and within the groups also. So that is why these two kind of rows are there. And this was the degrees of freedom. I told you how it has come. Now between the groups means between the sample, this is a mean square, and within the group, this is a mean square. And then we calculate F value. Told you in the beginning why it is a NOVA, because we are using F statistics here rather than T statistics. Okay, and a significant value is coming 0.096. So what does it indicate?
Ma'am, rejected at 5% but accepted at 10%.
हमें तो 5% ही लिया हुआ है ना exemption में.
ठीक.
हाँ. So it is accepted.
Yeah.
If you go back to this question, this was a question. We need to understand whether the exam performance differed based on the test anxiety level among the students, dividing students into 3 age groups. So what was the research question here? That the, what we call is anxiety level, जो है performance of exam is same among the 3 independent groups, and this was our null hypothesis, and this has been accepted. So it means there is no statistical significant difference in the performance of the students or the perceived stress level among the 3 age groups. कोई statistical difference नहीं है, arithmetically है, वो हमने प्रूव किया पिछली स्लाइड से। ये बार बार क्यों आई जा रही है, ये देखो अर्थमेटिकली ये फर्क है 27.53, 26.54, 26.06। लेकिन हमें क्या चेक करना होता है स्टेटिस्टिकली, और स्टेटिस्टिकली हमने प्रूव किया because this is a value, a null hypothesis has been accepted, so there is no significant difference in the perceived stress level among the 3 age groups. Any doubt in this?
Clear, ma'am, clear.
This is all from my side. Now, any question, if you wish to ask, you are most welcome. Your doubts I can take, because this was the only thing I could cover in this time span.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, any question or any other query from the participants?
Ma'am, namaskar. This is Vijay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this informative session. My concern, my point is that regarding the development of hypothesis. You have taken this aspect in the earlier section of your lecture, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
I want to ask one thing, ma'am. What should be the base for developing a adequate or proper hypothesis? It should be backed by any outcome of the previous studies, or we can take the null hypothesis on the basis of our understanding, or the advice of the experts can be taken regarding the development of a proper hypothesis regarding
Sir, both the things are required.
among the hypotheses.
One is the review of literature also, because that is the only thing which help us to grow our objectives. है ना? We formulate a hypothesis only when we have enough literature with us, we have dug out the literature, we have come out with the research gaps. Only then we go for our own objectives. Firstly, the research questions, then the objectives, then the hypothesis. And one thing more, it is not necessary that every study should have the hypothesis. People have अभी भी जब students आते हैं या I go for some external RDCs etc. लोगों ने 20 25 hypothesis लिखे होते हैं, मुझे समझ नहीं आती क्यों. That is not required. It's not that if you have so many hypotheses mean your research. मैंने PhD की, मैंने तो कोई hypothesis ही नहीं रखा था. ठीक है? Social sciences में it is not necessary. But again, it depends upon which kind of study you are taking, है ना? आपका कौन सा टॉपिक है, आपका एरिया कैसा है, और उसमें previous studies कैसी हुई हैं. If they are doing it and your study is related to this, then you'll have to do it accordingly. Of course, the other thing is your understanding, as you said, that you can do it with your understanding. Of course you do. But understanding किसके साथ आई? With review of literature ही आई ना? अपनी तरफ से तो ऊपर से तो कुछ भी नहीं आना. If I am studying one study है ना, उसके बाद दूसरी पढ़ी, तीसरी पढ़ी, that's a सबसे मुश्किल काम ही वही होता है जब तक हमारे objectives जो decide नहीं हो पाते. So that is only on the basis upon the review of literature, and your understanding will come with that. So it should be both the things together, whatever you understand and whatever the review of literature is saying. But it is not at all necessary that every study should have the hypothesis. I took this because my session was on testing of hypothesis. Had it been on that how to conduct research, my viewpoint could have been different. Anything else?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
I'm okay. Should I continue?
Sure,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, my question is not. Should I go
Continue,
ahead
madam.
or somebody else is asking?
जी
Okay,
आराधना जी
ma'am.
बोलिए मैम.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My question is not related to your presentation, but a general query. Ma'am,
Sure.
there are many researches happening with usage of, Google Docs and Google Helps. So how far, as a, person who is so much, into the guidance of, research methodology, how would you support or would recommend the usage of Google stuff as a method of doing research?
That is basically, if you ask me as a person, not as any expert, as a person.
Yes, I told you not related to your presentation.
Yeah. I don't believe in that much, because when we talk about Google Forms, etc., it can go to any person, right? And then we are never sure about our sample size. If our sample size is not correctly measured, how can we be sure about our results? That is the only. This is of course possible when the students are going for the research projects or training projects, etc. Then it is possible. Otherwise, firstly you select your sample, and you should know that if you have already determined that which will be my respondent, and then you are sending them the Google form, etc. Then it can be fine. Because if the sample is not accurate, how can it give the correct results? This is my belief, you can say.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else?
जी सुचित्रा जी आप कुछ
ladies
कहना चाह रहे थे.
ज़्यादा बोलने वाली नहीं है. They are on fast, I believe. हाँ?
जी सुचित्रा जी आप पूछना चाह रहे थे.
हाँ, hello ma'am.
हाँ जी.
Ma'am, ma'am, I want to know that is there any limit on minimum? How many hypotheses must be there? Minimum limit in any
No. There is no rule in this. At least as per my knowledge, there is no rule on this. There might be, but मेरी knowledge में ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. मैं तो कह रही हूँ कि hypothesis करना भी.
1 and 2 can be also be given. Only 1 and 2 can also be given.
Depending upon, are you conducting your PhD research? Are you going to conduct your project or any other research paper? This question is a vague question. PhD 1 or 2, देखो again आपका objectives क्या है ना? क्या उसमें hypothesis जरूरी है? ठीक है? उसके बेसिस पे ये भी हो सकता है कि आपका null hypothesis एक या alternate ज्यादा हो. मतलब इसमें बहुत सारा व्यू पॉइंट्स हैं. One cannot be giving a common answer to all kind of researches.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome. Anything else?
जी anyone else? I think it's done. So once again, thank you so much, Professor Mandeep Kaur ma'am. आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद for this amazing session on the topic of research hypothesis, which is really very indeed. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your sparing one time. Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome, and all the best to all of you.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So we will be rejoining at 1:30 p.m. after lunch break. And I have already shared the email address जिस पे आपको अपने जो articles हैं वो mail करने हैं. I'm again repeating, that is UGC-HRDC-Bhagat@rediffmail.com.
पवन जी
ईमेल एड्रेस पे सब आप अपने जो है आर्टिकल जो है वो मेल करेंगे.
सर ग्रुप में सेंड कर दीजिएगा एक बार इसको.
जी आई विल शेयर इन द ग्रुप ऑल्सो.
ओके सर, थैंक यू.
जी, और जो प्रेजेंटेशन रहेंगे वो आपको है जो है डे आफ्टर टुमारो से स्टार्ट रहेंगी. कुछ ग्रुप्स उसके बन चुके थे, कुछ ग्रुप जो नहीं बने थे हम उनको ग्रुप में तैयार करके आपकी जो ग्रुप वाइज प्रेजेंटेशन रहेगी, जिसमें जो कोई भी एक मेंबर जो है ग्रुप से अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन रख सकता है. राइट सर?
जी सर।
कौन सी ग्रुप की कौन सी कब टर्न आएगी वो कब बताओगे आप?
वो मैम उसका शेड्यूल बना के आपको बताया जाएगा कल।
ओके सर।
जी
सर ग्रुप डिटेल्स मिल सकते हैं कि कौन किस ग्रुप का
जी
क्या
जी,
है?
मैं वो शेयर कर देंगे मैम आपको। ग्रुप में जो ग्रुप बन चुके हैं उनको व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में शेयर कर दिया जाएगा, और जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स रहते हैं जिनको अब तक ग्रुप में नहीं डाला गया है उनके ग्रुप बना दिए जाएंगे मैम।
सर ये पवन जी, ये आर्टिकल कौन सा टॉपिक का ऊपर है? कल मैं पूछा था सर, मैं विनय
जी
बात
सर।
कर रहा हूँ।
जी जी सर, शायद वो नवीन मित्तल जी ने भी रिप्लाई किया था आपको, और आज चैट बॉक्स में भी रिप्लाई किया था। दैट इज बेस्ड ऑन न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी, और आप उसको अपने कॉलेज में या अपने इंस्टीट्यूशन में कैसे अप्लाई करते हैं सर।
ओके सर, ओके। Still we are on online classes, sir. So about to the national
Pavan sir,
education policy.
excuse me, Pavan sir.
जी जी
Pavan sir,
जी, माधवी मैम बताइए।
Pavan sir,
जी जी, मैं सुन पा रहा हूँ, बोलिए आप।
हेलो
मैम सुन
पवन
पा
सर।
रहा हूँ
आज
मैं,
ना
आप
थोड़ी
बताइए, अपनी
ऑडियो
बात
की
रखिए।
प्रॉब्लम आ रही है, और यूट्यूब पे सिर्फ 21 मिनट्स का था। आप
हाँ, आज चैट बॉक्स में
हाँ
भी
जी
दिखने को मिल रहा था कि भाई वॉइस नहीं आ रही है, वॉइस ब्रेक हो रही है। सो वो आपके एंड पे हो सकता है,
सर,
अदरवाइज
आवाज नहीं आ
बाकी
रही, प्लीज
पार्टिसिपेंट्स
चैट
को, या
बॉक्स
मैं
में लिख
अपनी ही बात
दीजिए।
करूं। सो मैं बड़े क्लियर सुन
हेलो
पा रहा था मैम।
नहीं नहीं,
हेलो
काफी प्रॉब्लम थी सर आज यहाँ पे भी।
पवन सर।
जी जी
सर, एम आई ऑडिबल?
यस मैम, वेरी मच।
पवन सर।
जी मैम बोलिए। माधवी जी, मैं आपको सुन पा रहा हूँ मैम।
माधवी मैम की आवाज नहीं आ रही, शायद वही कोई।
हाँ जी, इनके यहाँ पे मैं बताना चाहूंगा, कुछ लाइक हरदीप जी भी बात लिख रहे थे कि वो सुन नहीं पा रहे, बट पूरा सेशन जो था उसमें मुझे आई डोंट थिंक सो कि ऐसा कुछ इशू था। कुछ पार्टिसिपेंट्स को हो सकता है नेटवर्क इशू, बट फ्रॉम लाइक अगर बात की जाए मनदीप मैम, तो वहां से कोई इशू नहीं था, बाकी सब भी सुन पा रहे थे। जी, सो इट्स we will be joining back at 1:30 p.m. after lunch break. जी, thank you.
थैंक यू पवन सर।
थैंक यू सर।
जी जी।
हेलो